I am unashamed. What about you?
Did you say you brought comedy?
Yeah. This is what happens when people laugh. This won't be stand-up comedy. This will be sit-down comedy.
Because we're all sitting. Zach, we're all sitting. That's why it's
Yeah, we'll be the judge of that, Jase. So we'll be the judge of whether it's funny
Okay,
or not.
I'll introduce the show today, Maddie, because I feel like I need some music. We'll call this segment.
Can you start talking fast like that?
Oh, no, I can't. My voice is not up to par with Zach's ad reads, although he has been improving.
He is. He's getting his rhythm.
We'll do mail call. What's in the mail? That was my little jingle, Maddie. I feel like I need a
Maddie,
song.
could you sing it?
Well,
Because
so here's what happened. We're having to do podcasting.
one member of our team is like traveling a lot.
Well, we're having to do them in consecutive days.
Right.
So even though this is spread out in your world, Unashamed Nation, in our world,
It's packed tight.
it seems like I've never left this room. So we're trying to set the Guinness Book of World Records for most consecutive days doing 2 podcasts, double barrel style. So this is like multiple days. So I get home yesterday after the podcast, and we were planning a birthday party for the little one that we have.
Just
Hey,
three?
It's 3.
Wow,
It was. Oh yeah, and it
went by so fast.
It was dubbed the fire truck birthday party,
Of course.
and so he's into fire trucks. So Missy, when I walked in, shocking that a human being could transform our house into flames, buildings. That all of this was boxes and what do you call all this stuff? But she had
They
like
looked like buildings.
that
like,
big chandelier looking thing over our dinner table?
Mhm.
It looked like it was on fire,
Oh,
literal
yeah.
fire. It
Yeah.
was crazy. There were fire trucks everywhere. So she like started hollering from the kitchen while she's cooking dinner for everyone, and I said, I thought this was going to be a dinner. This is a party. Because she was like, oh, no, it's no big deal. No big deal. Oh, it's become a big deal. So she started giving me...
You don't decorate for no big deal.
She started like giving me jobs. And I was like, oh, am I your assistant in the... So we kind of had a little bit of marriage. You know how it goes. And I was like, she basically wants me to help
Yeah.
do something. So I took
It's called a sous chef in the cooking world.
I took the garbage out and I did something, Well, I thought, I'll go ahead and get the mail because it's really cold and wet yesterday. And
today,
not
too.
much better
Ugh,
today.
It's miserable.
So I get the mail and there's 2 packages. You can't make this up. That's why I'm saying this. I brought comedy to the podcast today because you cannot make this up. 99% of the times when I look at the address on who the packages are to, it is not me.
Yeah.
I don't want to point at any members of my family.
There's only one other
packages
person
what?
who lives there.
I didn't hear that.
99.5. Well, you took your hat off and now you can't hear.
Come on, Elmer. Get that hat back up.
99.5% of the packages that come do not have my name on it. I'm just saying these packages.
And we're not going to tell you who the 99.5 are for, but there's only one other person that lives there, Zach, so you figure it out.
So, but both of these had my name on it. And I thought, oh, I haven't ordered anything. So I opened the first package, and it was a sippy cup. Evidently, on a previous podcast, I had said something about faulty sippy cups in my babysitting duties. I have no recollection of that. I would, if I was in a court of law, but evidently I did because I read the note. I did, Maddie?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was an episode.
Maddie remembers everything.
So-
how do you do this many hours of podcast and remember everything?
She might have looked it up in 10 seconds. These young kids today, they get...
Beep, beep, beep,
Yeah,
beep, beep,
they're
beep.
like one step ahead of me. Their thumbs move like Zach talks on an ad. Bewildering speed. Actually, Zach, I got a letter the other day from the people who made the chipmunks claim
Alvin
to
and the
fame.
Chipmunks?
Yeah, and they said, "Look, do you think you can talk Zach into reading ads for us if we come out with the show again?" I made that up.
Zach.
That was all made up. So it was a sippy cup. It looked like a Yeti cup, and I thought Yeti sent me a cup because I'm an ambassador for Yeti. We've had a long relationship with them, and which I like, just full transparency. So because it kind of looked like that. But you know what I thought the joke was? Because you know what the name of the cup was? And I'm giving them free advertisements, and I haven't even tried it out, so I'm just telling you. But you know how this gets me? It said the Miracle Cup.
Oh,
and I thought, well, you had me, and then you lost me. We're actually
the Miracle Cup.
I feel like I can talk about this positively and negatively because I have not tried it. It's still in the package. And here's why. Because you think it was a birthday party. Why didn't you give it to the little kid? Missy's like, we're not giving that to him. It came out of the mail. I was like, but they didn't know it was his birthday. This is a sign.
That's right. I would 100% agree with you. This came from the Almighty.
They didn't know it was his birthday.
Yeah. And it was a miracle.
I have not said anything about it being his birthday. Am I right, Maddie? So I thought that was interesting, but she wouldn't let me do it. She's like, we have plenty of presents. And I think deep down, she didn't want him to say, oh, the cup. And then make all her presents.
She didn't want the cup to overshine the room full of fire equipment.
Having said this, it was a wonderful party.
Okay. And
true to form, you know what the number one thing he played with was? Because he had all kinds of presents. So a lot of our family and neighbors.
I'd say one of the decorations.
The boxes that looked like buildings on fire that the fire truck.
Yeah.
Because he thought there's more presents in those boxes. So he kept pointing on the boxes. I mean, I want the buildings. I was like, oh, he's going to put the fire out. No, he wanted to open all the boxes that were supposed to be buildings. So anyway, it was funny. But we had a great time. Having said that, package number 2. Now we'll have to cue some other music because just when you thought the story of the infamous trial, prosecution, seatbelt story was dead. Maddie, you thought that was dead.
We thought it was dead. We thought it was over.
By thought, you mean hope. We hoped it was dead.
No, Maddie literally tried to kill this story. And guess what? Unashamed Nation has brought it back.
Oh, boy. It's Unashamed Nation yet again.
Maddie, the people have spoken.
Or at least a person has spoken.
And now I had a jingle for the first part. Now I feel like I need some music because I am going to disrobe on Unashamed Nation and have a revealing.
Oh, boy.
So cue some music. Dun, dun, dun. That's why, look.
I suggest Marvin Gaye or Barry White.
I actually wore my Yeti jacket because I don't have a shirt that buttons. I looked in my whole closet.
No button.
I do not own a button-up shirt. I was going to do the buttons, but
somebody bought you one, but you didn't want to wear corduroy. But that's another topic.
So I get this in the mail, and I have it on my body.
Oh boy!
And I'm now going to reveal it, because I want to appreciate Unashamed Nation, and I also want to say, like the other package, you feel like, oh, this is nice, and yet disturbing. So I love our audience for those two reasons, because what I'm fixing to reveal, I'm waiting for the music. I feel like we need some kind of...
I would suggest the first 20 seconds of Marvin Gaye, Let's Get It On.
Let's get it on. All right, so for you listening, I am unzipping the jacket. And I got this in the mail. And it is actually... a shirt that someone in our disturbed world has made
so good.
That simulates you having a seatbelt on when you do not.
Wow! So if you're not watching, he's got on a white T-shirt with a black seatbelt printed on like it's strapped in.
You know what's disturbing?
Someone in Unashamed Nation has hit a home run today.
You know what's disturbing is this is an actual product in our world.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It was like the seatbelt shirt.
Oh, to make it look like you're wearing a seatbelt. I didn't even see it as being a deceptive idea.
Oh no, this is about circumventing the law. This is, and I saw another one online. I don't know if this is true or not, but I saw it on Instagram, so it must be true. Good. You can take, your license plate. You can order the numbers or the letters on your license plate, and then they send you a sticker in the mail, and you take the sticker and you put it on top of your number. And what happens is when you go through these cameras, where they check you're running a red light or something.
I've never ran a red light.
I don't believe that. Anyways, when it takes the picture, it somehow doesn't come up on the camera. So you can basically
to try to trick the cameras. Yeah.
It tricks the camera, and you can.
What's the verse, Jase? They invent ways of doing evil.
That's what Jase is doing. He's wearing a T-shirt to circumvent.
I just thought it was a joke.
Wait a minute. I didn't buy this T-shirt. I didn't go out and pursue this. Someone sent this to me, and I put it on because I thought, we're bringing it back. We're bringing the story. I will put my jacket back on because it's a little chilly in here.
Yeah, it's a little chilly.
But I just thought I would reveal that, and thank you, Unashamed Nation, for bringing it back. I think it was in the spirit of the resurrection.
Come on.
So I'm not supporting, condoning, or endorsing because Zach interrupted me mid-sentence. I've never run a red light between the hours of 5 a.m. and 12 midnight.
As you made painfully clear in the telling and retelling of the seatbelt story, you thought you were legal on that.
I thought I was not breaking the law.
Exactly.
I mean, look. Zach,
in Jase's defense, he thought he was doing
I quit breaking the law purposely many years ago.
Right.
So.
Oh, that's good. I mean, I don't know the purpose of it, but whoever sent that, kudos to you.
I want to tell you guys about Diane, who first stepped into the Tomorrow Club at 11 years old, a little girl, 11 years old, searching for belonging. And over the years, the club became more than just a place to visit. It actually became a source of hope for her. And through learning about God's love, she grew in her faith. And at the age of 14, she made a personal decision to follow Christ. Soon after that, she was baptized, became a member of the church. And now she's 17. She's no longer just a participant. She's a leader at the Tomorrow Clubs. And every Saturday, she dedicates her time to teaching young kids, passing on the same hope and wisdom that she once received. Here's what Tomorrow Clubs does. They are employing the Great Commission that we were called to, making disciples all over the world. Our friends at Tomorrow Clubs have been doing this for more than 25 years. Over 1 billion children in the world are growing in spiritual darkness, having never heard the gospel, but Tomorrow Clubs is helping the gospel reach those children. And over 500,000 children have learned to follow Jesus through Tomorrow Clubs. We would love for you guys to be a part of this ministry with us, support what they're doing. Here's what you do. Go visit tomorrowclubs.org/unashamed to become a Tomorrow Clubs ministry partner today and help us hit our goal. We want to reach 1,200 new Tomorrow Club members this month. For only $30 a month, you'll be able to provide Christ-centered discipleship to 30 children in an underserved community. That's tomorrowclubs.org/unashamed. And remember, all gifts are tax deductible. I think they were trolling you. I think that was a troll.
I don't know what that means. Look, when
Explain
I troll,
what a troll is.
Well, hold on for our audience. Everybody who knows me, when we troll, that means we have some baits out behind a boat and we're catching fish.
Kind of similar. They're baiting you.
That's what it originally meant.
Yeah, they're trolling. Like they're messing with you. They're. I got accused of being an internet troll one time when I ran for Congress. There was an article that said I was a former internet troll because I had questioned.
Okay.
They ran through some of my tweets and they're like, "Oh, this guy was," because I respond back on.
This is not real. You've now entered a fantasy world of the internet where you're coming up with.
Yeah,
words that are now relating to something that's really not real.
Right. But I will say this about just the Dashers in general. if you probably looked up the history of the word dasher, troll is probably in there. Because you talk about troll for trouble.
Well, you guys aren't far behind. In fact, y'all are just more like subtle. Not even subtle. I don't know. You have a way of doing.
Well, you have a trolling motor. You can put that on the front of the boat.
Which to Jase's point, at least that is an actual thing. A trolling motor is an actual thing.
But I'm just saying, Robertson's troll in the other way as well. The way y'all do it, see, dashers are up front. We just come right at you. What you guys do, he was the best at it. He would talk to someone adjacent, but he's messing with he's looking to the left, talking to the person on the left.
That's
but
true.
he's trolling the person on the right. It's very effective. By the way,
while you were getting upset over a non-human, probably an artificial, intelligent image of a creation that went wrong, and you were getting stressed out about something they said and deeming it as trolling, I was actually trolling catching fish.
You were catching
that I was going to
fish.
put in my body. Thus, I'm eating more healthy, and I don't have to go on all
Way to
these.
tie it back together,
all
Jase.
these
And I want you to continue to do that, because I've been the recipient of your trolling on many occasions.
Thank you,
and I'm appreciative. So I'm not chastising you for your form of trolling.
That's why I'm pushing back on this, because trolling is a positive thing. It will put fresh fish in your belly.
That's true.
You turned it into a negative because
no, I didn't turn it in. I report. You decide.
But they lured you in to the fantasy world of, I'm having an argument with somebody that might not be a body.
So I got one question before we leave this topic, because I'm intrigued and I have been humored today. What did Missy say about this gift? Because I know she said something.
Yep. I'll just give you one word. Ridiculous. That is ridiculous. In fact, when I got up this morning, I almost walked out and forgot the shirt, because it got part of the windstorm that was her preparing.
Right, because then you got to clean
for
all
the
that
party
up.
last night, which I couldn't find my phone charger. I couldn't go to bed last night because I hadn't charged my phone in 2 days.
Yeah,
and it was just, I thought I got to get up in the morning. We had the little man. I had studied late, which the stuff that we're fixing to talk about could possibly blow your mind. Because I was sleep deprived. I'd been under the weather. And you know how you just come up with these crazy things, in the Bible? Yep. And so, because we left off at Jacob's ladder.
We did. That's where we're going to go.
Let me tell you something. We're fixing to go on a ladder ride.
And Jase has a seatbelt to hold him in.
Well, I said, "Where's my shirt?" And she's like, "What shirt?" I said, "The seatbelt shirt." And she went, "Roll the eyes.
Roll the eyes.
It's, go through this room, take a left, go here. There's a little deal." Yeah, I'm like,
how do they know that?
Because she wouldn't put it.
The same
way.
She
put it there.
I know,
but I was like, why didn't you just put it in my closet?
Rearranged and stuff. I mean, it's like, but they always know where it's at.
That's what I'm saying. True. They all I go and look because it was someplace I remembered leaving something. It's not there, and Lisa always knows where it is.
She said, "I'm
look under the third magazine on
exactly.
the back.
How do they know that?"
She said, "I'm not putting an illegal shirt in your closet."
See, what's funny is I didn't even go there when I first saw it. I just thought somebody made this up, and I thought somebody is brilliant.
No, it's a thing.
No, I got it. I don't look at the nefarious.
It's thrilling yet disturbing, which is our audience. So thank you. I'm glad to be a part of it. You keep life interesting. So it's awesome. It's very funny. And I can't remember the name of the person who sent it.
Well, I figured since you didn't say it, you forgot. But you know who you are because you sent it. So they're having a big time right now, remembering that.
I've been wearing my seatbelt. I actually have had 2 other encounters with said officer because it's like the place now. I notice where he's at. I
look for him now because of your incidents.
I've continued to wave, and I have gotten 0 response. Not a tip of the hat, not a smile. It's just looking straight ahead as I roll by. So that's where we're at in our relationship.
What's funny is he probably has no memory of Jase. He doesn't even remember. He's giving
Now,
so many
once you
chickens
see
out.
this, you never forget it.
Yeah. All right. So we got to get back to John 1
I want to take a ride on the ladder.
on the ladder.
Let's read the John 151.
Because you said Zach had some interesting things that he wanted to talk about Jacob's ladder.
Well, let me set it up because there were a couple of things I didn't get to say on the last podcast.
Which some people may be confused, Al, on why we're talking about Jacob's ladder in
Right.
John chapter 1.
Exactly. So
Well, we ended the podcast last time, and I had to add in Al, you tried to shut me down at the end. Like, we're out of time, but I added a little 30 seconds on the end.
No, it was 3.5 minutes.
Yeah, that you said 2 seconds. We remember it well. Yeah. Give me 2 seconds, 3 minutes.
It was about like you losing 1.5 pounds.
It was in the margin of error.
Margin of error. So we were talking about the calling of the disciples. We're in John 1, right at the end of the chapter. And Jesus runs up on one of these guys who is Nathaniel. And what's interesting is Nathaniel, we didn't get into this, but I want to set it up before we get to Jacob's ladder. He apparently had been sitting under a tree, which I did a little bit of a dive on this, Jason. You know, they had a picture that showed these fig trees and what they look like, over in Israel. And so they're big, bushy trees. And so a lot of times these guys would sit and either just pray and contemplate, or sometimes if they were well enough along, they would actually have a scroll, to be able to read different parts of the Old Testament with the Torah. And so apparently this is the kind of guy Nathaniel is. And
I think it's not even apparent. Because when I went to Israel, I looked at the trees and I thought, Nathaniel was under a tree.
That's it.
About like this.
About like that. And so Jesus recognizes it and tells him that. So, and it's like, to me, it's almost, and we didn't get into this, but it's almost humorous to me because Nathaniel has already made a slur comment towards where Jesus is from. What good thing come out of Nazareth? Yeah. And by the way, he's from Cana, which is about 4 miles away, they think, from Nazareth. And so this is kind of the better part of town he's from, to use our illustration.
And we find out he's from Cana in like chapter 20.
Yeah. And that's also, by the way, where this next miracle comes in, or the first miracle in John 2, and the second one in John 4, which is kind of ironic. They both happen in Cana. So, Jase, we're always looking for a good movie. You saw one called Last Breath. Tell us about that.
I did. I watched Last Breath, and Missy watched it with me. And it's an incredible true story, which I always love true stories.
Yeah.
It's well acted. The cinematography is great. Woody Harrelson is in it.
Who's a great actor.
But it's really the story. I mean, it was just a true story that really makes you wonder, how does this happen? And I really liked it. I thought they did a good job.
So as Jay said, it's based on extraordinary true events. Last Breath tells the story of a deep-sea diver trapped at the bottom of the ocean. The diver has only 10 minutes of oxygen left, so he struggles to navigate the pitch-black abyss while his teammates devising a daring plan to save him from certain death. What happens next, some called impossible, others called it a miracle. It stars Woody Harrelson and Simu Liu and Finn Cole. Last Breath takes you inside a world of deep-sea, high-pressure diving where every decision, every second, and every breath is a life-or-death moment. Incredible performances, astonishing visuals, and an uplifting emotional core. This is a great movie you don't want to miss. Witness the most thrilling motion picture event of the year on the big screen by getting your tickets now for Last Breath. It's rated PG-13, may be inappropriate for children under 13. It opens February 28th in theaters everywhere. Check it out.
Also, I'd add that the tree, the fig tree, is also symbolic of. If you look at the Old Testament, there's I got 3 different verses here, but it's a symbolic or like a common symbol for Israel. This is Hosea 9:11. When I found Israel, it was like finding grapes in the desert. when I saw your ancestors, it was like seeing the early fruit on the fig tree.
Yeah.
Or another one in Micah 4:4, everyone will sit under their own vine and under their own fig tree. So there's all these texts in the Old Testament. So you got to think about this conversation is about Israel, and this is a common symbol for Israel.
That's a good point.
And that's why it's connected to this Jacob's ladder. And I think that's
which is why Jesus said, "Look, an Israelite who."
Well, he said here, the NIV reads, here's a true Israelite in whom there's nothing false. And I thought it was interesting because a way you could phrase this, and some of the other versions say this, is like, here's a guy who tells it like it is. And so he had already been like disparaging. And if Jesus goes back pre-disparage when he saw him under the tree, he's kind of letting him know. And I know that you've been talking about me, which I thought was kind of funny. He says,
his identification here is that this guy he has a faithful Israelite. So he's building out this picture of what that looks like.
And then he says in verse 48, and I'm leading us up to where we're going today, how do you know me? Nathaniel asked. Well, I saw you while you're still under the fig tree before Philip called you. He said, I've known you for a long time, son. Then Nathaniel all of a sudden goes from what good thing can come from Nazareth to Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. I mean, you talk about a hairpin turnaround. This is like
180.
What good thing could come from Nazareth to you are the King.
Yeah, because I think scholars believe that he had this moment under this tree, epiphany, whatever.
Yeah, right.
And now Jesus is bringing this up.
He
He's like,
confirms
well,
it.
how do you know it? And then what a lot of scholars say, I tend to agree, is then when Jesus said, you believe because I told you I saw you under the fig tree, you shall see greater things than that. I tell you the truth, you shall see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. So a lot of scholars are saying, not only did he see him under the tree, he knew what he was thinking about, which is the story of Jacob's ladder, which he's now saying in a crude translation, I am that ladder.
Yeah, exactly.
Between heaven and earth. Because that's why I read that last podcast in Genesis 28, because Jacob had this vision. And you remember the story. I mean, he was running from his brother. He had been deceitful and all that. Now his brother's trying to kill him because he stole his birthright.
And by the way, this vision he had is actually 4 chapters. I'm not sure about the timing because I hadn't read it, but recently. But it's before he sort of has his moment in Genesis 32, where he wrestles with this person or angel or whatever it was he wrestled with, and then kind of comes to this new place of going from a deceiver to Israel. God even changed his name.
Well, if you think about the ladder or the stairway, it's what that is. It is the connection point between heaven and earth, and so they're going up and down on this ladder or staircase. That is what connects heaven and earth. It's symbolic, by the way, of the temple as well, which is a place where heaven and earth meet. So you got to think. What the whole point here is, what is the connection point between heaven and earth? And in Jacob's ladder, it was a ladder. And to your point, Jesus then becomes a ladder. So where the angels are climbing on a physical ladder between heaven and earth, Jesus becomes the thing that we move upon in between heaven. He connects heaven and earth itself. I think that's a very provocative thought, but it seems to flow in line with everything that Jesus is about to do in his unfolding ministry.
True. Where the rabbit hole I wanted to go down, and I've heard lessons on this, and I do not claim to know everything about what I'm fixed to introduce. But
remember, this was a sleep-deprived, party-induced study. So
it was.
I'm
that
just
study.
setting the context.
But these things I have looked into before, and I've heard various preachers preach on these subjects, and I've listened to a lot of them.
Yep.
Even our buddy, who is Mackie?
Yep.
I remember hearing a lesson he did about this one time, and so what I was going to say is that when you think about all the times that something like this happened with Jacob's ladder, where you have Jacob either asleep or you think about Revelation 1, when John the Revelator is fixing to have this revelation. Well, remember, he says he was in the Spirit.
Yep.
And then he sees something kind of crazy. I mean, I'll just read it. And then I just wanted to get y'all's thoughts on this, and I'll tell you what I think. But let's just kind of look at this. When he says in verse, let's see, where does it say he was on an island? That's in verse 9. On the island of Patmos, because the word of God and the testimony of Jesus. And on the Lord's day, I was in the Spirit.
Yeah.
And so he has this kind of vision. Well, the vision gets kind of crazy in verse 13, because he saw among these lampstands someone like a son of man. Well, the reason I'm bringing this up is because we just read that in John 1, where he said Jacob's ladder. Who's going to be part of this ladder with angels coming up and down from heaven? It says the Son of Man.
Yeah.
Well, now
he told Nathaniel, you're going to see this.
Well, then we went to Jacob's ladder, and when did he see this vision? Well, when he was asleep.
Yeah.
Well, now John's in the Spirit. We're at the end of the book.
Yeah.
There's got to be a connection here.
Yeah.
And so look what he sees. He sees Son of Man dressed in a robe, reaching down to his feet, and with a golden sash around his chest. His head and hair were white like wool, as white as snow. His eyes were like blazing fire. His feet were like bronze glowing in a furnace, and his voice was like the sound of rushing waters. And it goes on to say, he had a sharp, double-edged sword coming out of his mouth. His face was like the sun shining in all its brilliance. And when I saw him, I fell at his feet as though dead. And then he placed his right hand on me and said, "Don't be afraid. I'm the first, I am." Here we go. That we talked about that last time. I am the first and last. I am the living one. I was dead, and behold, I am alive forever and ever.
That was 3 I ams in the verse.
And I hold the keys of death and Hades. Now, here's what's interesting. I want to make another point. When he gets to chapter 2 in verse, where's that at? Verse 7. Look what he says here. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To him who overcomes, now watch this little phrase, I will give the right to eat from the tree of life, which is in the paradise of God. You say, why are you bringing this up? Well, there's this word paradise is not used very many times in the Bible. So what's the most famous time it's used?
Today you'll be with me in paradise.
That's it.
So 2 months ago, I started taking Field of Greens. And somebody told me this, that if your fingernails have like ridges on them, which mine did, that's a sign of malnutrition. I didn't know that. Did you know that, Jase?
I did not.
Well, I started taking Field of Greens, and guess what? My fingernails are smooth now. My hair's growing. Guess what? I'm not wearing a hat today. Al, have you tried this, or is Lisa? I think you said Lisa's on it, right?
Yeah, Lisa was really intrigued. I've got, for those of you that are watching, I have one of the jars here on set, and she's loving it. She's been in on it about a week.
It actually is really good. It's a delicious glass of Field of Greens. It's like a nutritional armor for your body. Each fruit and vegetable was carefully selected by doctors for a specific health benefit. There's one for heart health. There's one for lungs, kidney, metabolism, and even healthy weight. When I take it, I love the energy that I get with Field of Greens, but most of all, I love the confidence that even if I have a cheat day, you can still enjoy it guilt-free because of Field of Greens. It provides all the daily nutrients your body needs. And only Field of Greens makes the better health promise, which I think this is pretty cool. Your doctor will notice your improved health, or you get your money back. So let us get you started with our special discount. We have a 20% off your first order discount to get you started. All you got to do is use the code Unashamed at fieldofgreens.com. That's promo code Unashamed at fieldofgreens.com.
I've heard these lessons. I've looked at the Greek words. So when you say, well, what does that word mean? So the Greek word is like paradiso, which is basically what we did, was take a Greek word, use English letters,
Yeah.
to get paradise.
Right.
But when you say, what is paradiso in Hebrew? Well, it means, would you believe this? Garden.
Mm.
So some of the lessons I've heard is when he says, today you will be with me in paradise. Well, that and one of the lessons I heard, I think it was Micah who gave this. He's like, well, he said that is a future occurrence because they're fixed to die.
Yeah.
Today you will be with me in paradise once we're
Right.
dead. So he asked a question, which I thought was a real interesting question. He said, when is paradise? And he went through that same little definition of the word, and he's like, why is he bringing up garden? Well, we know to any Jew, when you bring up the word garden, where do you immediately go?
Garden of Eden.
Garden of Eden.
Well, you go to the Garden of Eden, which is what he did. So he's like, well, so is it fixing to happen? Or did it already happen in the past? So he put that up there. If he's talking about the garden.
He didn't say fixing. He probably said, is it about to happen?
Fixing us.
I'm
That's all
paraphrasing.
vernacular.
That's all one word.
I'm paraphrasing.
Fixing us.
But the key phrase that he brought out, which I'm going to bring out, is just like here in Revelation, when John had his vision, he has this view of Jesus. Well, look, this is not weird in Scripture. If you turn to Ezekiel 8, you see a similar occurrence. And I'd like to read that, the first 3 verses. And I want to point out something that when Jesus said today, there's a little phrase before he says paradise. He says, you'll be with me. And all of a sudden, when you tie this into John seeing this image of who is the image that John saw in Revelation 1?
Son of Man.
Son of Man. Who was that?
Yeah. Jesus.
Jesus.
The resurrected Jesus.
And I'm not even bringing up the story of Daniel and the fiery furnace. You remember there was 3 guys in the fiery furnace. And then who showed up?
The Son.
Well, there was one like the Son of Man, a fire. And okay, I'm not even bringing that one up, but I just thought I'd mention it. So Ezekiel 8, you read this. I think this is fascinating. Ezekiel 8. And you have, I think this is Ezekiel 8. In the 6th month, this is verse 1, on the 5th day, while I was sitting in my house. Now we have, John was on the island of Patmos. And now you got a guy in, where is this at? Mesopotamia. No, that was Jacob in Jacob's ladder. He was just out in a field. Well, now we got a guy in a house.
And by the way, this was written probably 600 to 700 years before John saw his deal.
Yeah. He was sitting before the hand. Let's see. I was sitting in my house, and the elders of Judah were sitting before me. The hand of the sovereign Lord came upon me there.
So that's kind of like that in the spirit thing.
Yeah, and I looked, and I saw a figure like that of a man. Well, that sounds interesting. Where's this going? From what appeared to be his waist down, he was like fire. Well, that seems to be something that's commonly happening here. And from there up, his appearance was as bright as glowing metal. He stretched out what looked like a hand and took me by the hair of my head.
That sounds painful.
The Spirit lifted me up. Now, watch this phrase. Between, some versions say land and sky, between earth and heaven. And in visions of God, he took me to Jerusalem. Now, where exactly is that between earth and heaven? Yeah. Now, I want to read one other thing before I give you the next piece to this puzzle, because I didn't read the Genesis 28 because I read it last time, but I do want to zero in on one theme. I think I read it last podcast. But when Jacob's on the ladder, or having the vision about the ladder, it says in verse 13, there above it stood the Lord, and I said, I am the Lord, the God of your father. I will give you. So we're back to this I am, which is famous for Jesus. Remember we had the 7 I ams, and I added an 8th. Well, guess where the only other place the New Testament uses that word paradise? I've already read you the one in Revelation 2. Then there's the one in Luke where he said, today you'll be in paradise. Well, there's one other. It's only 3 times. It's in 2 Corinthians. I'm doing pretty good just from memory, remembering all this. 2 Corinthians 12. Now, I want to read this. Verse 1. I must go on boasting, verse 1. Although, this is Paul talking. There's nothing to be gained. I will go on to visions and revelations from the Lord. Now, watch what he says. And most scholars believe he's actually talking about himself because of what comes up later in the paragraph.
No, I think it is.
He said, I know a man in Christ who 14 years ago was caught up to the third heaven. Whether it was in the body or out of the body, I do not know. God knows. And I know that this man, whether in the body or apart from the body, I do not know, but God knows.
Meaning that, was he actually teleported there, or was he just...
Well, we're back to this in the spirit dream, now, because, I mean, you kind of think in this case, he was just praying, and this happened.
Yeah.
But then when you notice the key verse in verse 4, here's our word again, was called up to paradise, which he seems to use heaven and paradise synonymously here.
Yeah.
Now,
because he said third heaven.
And then he actually said he heard inexpressible things that man is not permitted to tell. And I'll boast about a man like that, but I will not boast about myself, except about my weaknesses.
Which is a clever way
which
of
is him saying, I could boast about that, but since that was me in the third person, I'm not going to boast about it.
Clever.
So I want to bring this up. So you say, well, how do you tie this together? Well, isn't it interesting that the word being used garden, because I want to go back to that. In Revelation 2, when he used the word paradise, he throws in that tree of life. Well, isn't it ironic that in the last chapter, which when Jesus said, today you will be with me in paradise, and you go back and realize he used the word for garden, Hebrew word, which if we are agreeing, that could be what happened in Genesis 1 and 2.
Yeah. When
you get to Revelation 21, and he now has this vision of, what would you call this? Future. Remember the question, when is paradise?
Right.
So he said, well, it could have been in the past because it could have been in the garden.
Yep.
It could have been in the future because they were fixed to die. But here, watch what happens. When he saw John, who had already mentioned this in chapter 1 and 2, or reference to this Son of Man having this vision. When I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea, I saw the holy city, the New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne, now the dwelling of God is with men, and he will live with them. To Zach's point, Jesus seems to be implying that, remember that ladder, that Jacob's ladder, that you had the vision, and I'm that ladder. I'm the heaven and earth coming together through me. I'm the place where God and humans meet. Well, now all of a sudden we go to the future of future. This seems to be what the future holds for people who are indwelled by the Spirit of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Heaven and earth comes together. It's however you want to, I have trouble describing this because however you want to describe that.
Right.
It's a new heaven and new earth. We have new bodies. We're indestructible now.
Yep.
We live. All right.
We can eat fish.
Yeah, they will be his people and God will be himself. But notice what he does when you get to chapter 21 and verse 22. It says, I didn't see a temple in the city because the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. The city does not need the sun and the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it light. The Lamb is the lamp. Okay, the nations walk by the light. But when he gets to 22, look, what does he bring up? The tree of life and the garden.
I am super excited to introduce you to our brand new partner to the show, Pure Talk. It's the first time in Unashamed history that I've actually gone after an advertiser instead of them coming to us. Primarily because I got stuck in a catastrophic storm here in North Carolina where had zero cell phone coverage during the storm. I said, I'm going to make sure that I have a better plan next time. So I made the switch, and I switched to a company called Pure Talk, America's wireless company, whose CEO is a veteran and served a couple tours in theater. You know, our family, obviously, we love our veterans. And one of the things we love about Pure Talk is that they are committed to helping veterans. They've donated $50,000 to provide scholarships to support veterans learning trades after they get out of active duty. And they're also helping to eliminate veteran debt. And they're also raising donations to end veteran suicide. It's a wireless company who really believes in creating American jobs. It's why their customer service team is so good. These are the good old boys out of Covington, Georgia. And here's the deal. Pure Talk is on America's most dependable 5G network. It's the same towers, the same network as the big guys, but about half the cost. And trust me when I tell you, it's very economical. You get unlimited talk, unlimited text, and 5 gigs of data for just $25 a month. The average family saves over $1,000 a year on their cell phone bill. These are real savings for real families, but you also keep the same coverage that you may have now, or even better coverage in my case. You can keep your phone, you can keep your number, or you can choose from the latest iPhones and Androids. Switching is easy. I know because I did it. And now I'm a proud Pure Talk customer. Just go to puretalk.com/unashamed to save 50% off your first month. Make the switch today at puretalk.com/unashamed and join America's wireless company, Pure Talk.
Then the angel showed me the river of the water of life as crystal, clear as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb down the middle of the great street of the city. On each side of the river stood the tree of life, which you go back to. That's why I read that Revelation 2. And you say, well, what was the significance of that? Well, you remember where this all went wrong with Adam and Eve? There was a tree and there was some fruit on it. And they wanted the knowledge of good and evil, and that didn't go well. But now here's Jesus hung on a tree, which even Paul referenced him as the first fruits, from the dead many times, fruit on a tree, tree of life. Remember the tree of life was in the garden. It was also
there.
And it was
we were assuming it was right there close to the other one.
And now Jesus on the tree of life enabled us by, through forgiveness, atonement, triumphing over the evil powers, all that.
Triumphing over death.
Then his resurrection, triumphing over death. It's the fruit of the tree of life, which we are. So then it says, and on each side of the river stood the tree of life. Look at this, bearing 12 crops of fruit. We're back to a garden.
Yep.
And the leaves of the trees are for the healing of the nations. No longer will there be any curse. The throne of God and of the Lamb will be in the city, and his servants will serve him. So, what does that next verse say? There will be no more night. Oh, they will see his face, and his name will be on their foreheads, and there'll be no more night. So, because he's the light.
Right.
You're going back to John 1. So that was kind of the rendition. So his question was, when? Was it the past? Was it in the imminent future? Or was it the future of futures here? And he put, yes. Which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready for that. And then he put where? And then he went through all these locations. And he put, was it on the island? Was it in the field at Jacob's ladder? Was it at the house?
Was it in Jerusalem? Was it Ezekiel 8? Yeah.
Yeah. Was it when Paul was in this room praying and he went, exactly.
Yeah.
And his point was, which I thought was a very good point. And like I said, I'm not defending it. I'm just putting it out here for your views. His point was that he believes that there is a realm where God exists and Jesus is when it says at the right hand of God. That our 5 senses can't, whatever you want to use that word. I'm having trouble with the English language.
Yeah.
They can't
access it.
We can't access, but it's not far.
Yeah.
Because all these things are happening, and it's always happening in a spirit of consciousness. Now, his point was that we've lived in this world and it's been shaped by all the earthly kingdoms and everything we see, and that we can't see it. And but all these people in moments of vulnerability and deep prayer and this special relationship with God, or God using these people in special instances to proclaim him, have this encounter and this vision and this. He's like, but the point is, it's not as far as you think, this realm. And I really thought it was beautiful, you know. He kind of made an analogy of like being on a mountaintop because he went to the Transfiguration. He's like, what was that all about? Well, here we're back to the fire. You have these two guys who had controversial deaths. One, they couldn't find Moses' body. The other, Elijah just went up. So now you see them in their form of being in contact with the eternal Son. And that's the phrase he used. The Son is now eternal. And it's all around us in this. We have his Spirit. He's fighting on our behalf, the principalities and, you know, about the struggle all in Ephesians and all that. So that was that. And I thought, man, you want to talk about Jacob's ladder? I mean, I think they did a movie about it, Hollywood, which I never saw it because it was rated R. Zach, you watch rated R movies. You probably saw it.
Did you ever see that, Zach?
I didn't see that movie, but I have watched a few rated R movies. But you've never done that. I do remember watching Halloween at your house when I was about 6 years old. So.
Well, I was raised in an environment of my parents were young Christians, and they didn't look at the letters on movies, and so yeah,
that was our Christmas surprise every year. Was a rated R.
I mean,
yeah. One thing I heard N.T. Wright speak on this recently, and he talked about this idea of paradise. He said when Jesus told the thief on the cross, "Today you'll be with me in paradise," jokingly, it was kind of funny. He said, "Well, he wasn't going to be there long though, because he came out of the grave 3 days later. But it was like the intermediate place, and everybody kind of chuckled. But where is it? Where are your loved ones at who have died? Those who are in Christ?" And which I thought about my mom. I was thinking about all that, but he had the way he described it, similar to kind of how Dallas Willard talks about heaven being like around us. It's like it's not. He said that there's this thin veil between heaven and earth, and it's we just can't see it yet, but it's here. Like heaven's here. And the way I thought about it when he was talking about it, this is probably a horrible analogy. I'm going to try it though. It's like that show Stranger Things, where there's this other realm called the Upside Down, which is kind of like an inverse of the actual real world that they live in. But it's like but it's like the dark side of this world. It's like that, but the opposite. It's just a very, very thin veil. And what's going to happen at the consummation of the kingdom is all of that's going to be just torn. That it's going to be disclosed, full disclosure. And Jesus, the way I understand this text is that Jesus is a prototype. Not prototype. He is the connection between those two worlds.
Or maybe
he is
the
now the
first
ladder.
fruits.
First
I
fruits,
mean,
yeah.
And prototype's not a bad word. I want to read one verse because we're almost out of time, but very intriguing what Jase has brought up. I like this sleep-deprived, induced thought. Maybe you were in the spirit last night.
I might have been.
So here's the verse I thought of when you were doing this. It's just because I just preached on this. Man, it's so powerful into what you just talked about. This is Ephesians 3:10. His intent, talking about God's, was that now, which there's a time and place, through the church. So this revealing at the first century of Jesus' life, the manifold wisdom of God should be made known to the rulers and authorities in the heavenly realms, according to his eternal purpose, which he accomplished in Jesus Christ our Lord. Then he goes on to talk more. And it hit me on that phrase, the idea about that veil, not just from our side of the equation, but also from the other side of the equation.
I agree.
About
And that we have a role in testifying,
and that they want to look at us. Yes,
and that's that's powerful. And that word manifold, I think it's better translated. I've heard is like colorful expression.
Yeah,
it's like it's not. It's a picture of something very beautiful and colorful,
which is what I read. And look, whether you agree, with what I really don't have a stance on all the details of that. I just read all those verses where those things happen. What I like about it and what I do have a stance on is that it makes you realize God is not far. Think of the sermon that Paul preached in Acts 17, like we think he's a million miles away.
Yeah.
But it's a focus on Jesus. And all those passages, there was an encounter with one who looked like the Son of Man. And we all know who that is.
Yeah.
And when you think about what I didn't read in Revelation, which I think is very powerful, but that verse that says, He was, He is, and is to come. Where is that in Revelation? I think that's
right after Alpha and Omega, I think.
Yeah, and when you think about even the verse that says Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever.
Right.
And so when he says, hey, today you'll be with me, that's enough for me.
Yeah.
In paradise, what exactly does that mean? But I know if you're with Jesus, and I know when you have his spirit, he says he'll be with you forever.
All right, we're out of time. Man, good stuff. We'll pick it up here next time. Unashamed. Thanks for listening to the Unashamed podcast. Help us out by leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And don't miss an episode by subscribing on YouTube. And be sure to click the little bell and choose all notifications to watch every episode.